So, today we're diving deep into the dark psychology of workplace conflict. And I'm not just talking about little disagreements over deadlines. No, we're talking about high stakes power struggles, serious manipulation, and even outright sabotage. We're going to explore the hidden dynamics that can turn colleagues into enemies, and in some really shocking cases, something much, much worse. This sounds like it's straight out of a crime thriller, but it's a completely true story. In December of 2020, the chairman of a hugely successful gaming company was fatally poisoned, and the person convicted of the crime, his very own CEO. This wasn't some random act of violence. It was the terrifying end result of a corporate power struggle. And this just raises a really chilling question, doesn't it? How do professional disagreements, even really intense ones, escalate all the way to murder? What is going on inside a company's culture and its power structure that allows conflict to fester and become this destructive?
Well, the path to this tragedy wasn't a sudden explosion. It was more like a slow burn of escalating conflict. It all started with a dispute over the intellectual property rights for the famous sci-fi novel, The Three-Body Problem. From there, the CEO's position and his pay started to crumble. Then, the chairman's team began to isolate him, putting immense pressure on him to just quit. The conflict finally reached a breaking point, and it ended with a fatal dose of poison. Now, while that case is obviously an extreme, it really shines a spotlight on a fundamental truth. The way power is structured inside an organization can either keep things stable or, well, it can create the perfect storm for destructive conflict to just spiral completely out of control. So, this makes you ask a really crucial question about your own life, right? Is your workplace a stable system, or is it a powder keg just waiting for a spark? The answer might not be about the individuals, but about the very architecture of power that exists between the leaders. To really get our heads around this, researchers have come up with this fascinating idea called the U-shaped power curve. And what it shows is that the biggest risk for instability, wild swings in company performance and intense conflict, doesn't just happen in one scenario. It happens at two very different and very dangerous extremes. Okay, so on one side of the U, you've got way too much power disparity. One leader is so dominant that there are absolutely no checks and balances. That just leads to self-serving decisions. But on the other side, you have almost no power disparity at all. And when leaders are too equal, it can spark these constant internal power struggles, what the source material calls NADO, which basically paralyzes the organization while they all fight for the top spot. Both extremes are a recipe for disaster. So, the takeaway here is pretty clear. Stability is found right in the middle. A moderate power gap is the sweet spot. It's enough of a difference to stop the constant infighting, but not so much that one person can just do whatever they want with zero accountability. Now, these unstable power structures are the perfect breeding ground for two totally different kinds of people to show up. One of them wants to create value, and the other one just wants to extract it for themselves. Let's break this down a bit. On one side, you've got the authentic leader. They operate with transparency, they have a strong moral compass, and they build trust, which then boosts things like job satisfaction and commitment. But on the other side, you have an archetype that researchers bluntly call the petty person. This individual is driven by pure self-interest and will use any malicious tactic they can to get ahead, even if it means destroying everything and everyone in their path. And this creates a huge ripple effect. You see, authentic leadership isn't just some feel-good concept. It is a massive strategic advantage. It directly builds trust, both in supervisors and between coworkers, and that trust becomes the foundation for real, tangible results, like higher job satisfaction and way stronger commitment to the organization. Trust is really the currency of a healthy workplace. But what happens when that trust is exploited by someone who just doesn't play by the rules? Now we're going to zoom in on the specific tactics of the petty person, the opportunist. Their entire strategy is captured by this really powerful idiom, looting a burning house. And this highlights a critical ethical line. I mean, it's one thing to manage a crisis. It's another thing entirely to see chaos and distress, not as a problem to be solved, but as a golden opportunity for personal gain. And here is their playbook. They spread rumors to create chaos. They're masters of flattery to people in power and total hypocrites to everyone else. They steal credit for your work and shift the blame for their own mistakes. They are like parasites, attaching themselves to powerful people only to abandon them the very second that power starts to fade. See if any of that sounds familiar.
Their whole personality can be summed up in one chillingly perfect phrase: fake warmth, backstabbing. It's a calculated performance, right? A friendly mask designed to get you to lower your guard right before they strike. So, when you're faced with this kind of toxic operator, how do you protect yourself? This isn't about stooping to their level. No, it's about building a smart, strategic defense. Let's just walk through the steps. First, keep your distance. Be professional, not personal. Second, control the information you share. Anything you say can and will be twisted, so just avoid gossip and don't overshare. Third, stay away from any financial ties or doing favors that can be used against you later. Fourth, and this is a big one, refuse to get into a direct fight. They fight dirty, and that's a battle you just can't win on their terms. And finally, and most importantly, just focus on your own integrity and let your great work speak for itself. But beyond these tactics, the research points to a much deeper defense. It's not a strategy you use in the moment, but a quality you build over time. And that is modesty.
A classic saying captures this perfectly. Haughtiness invites ruin, modesty receives benefits. See, arrogance makes you a big, shiny target for an opportunist. Humility, on the other hand, acts like a powerful shield.
So how does this actually work? Well, modesty builds your defense on 3 levels. Cognitively, it gives you an accurate view of yourself, so it cuts down on the arrogance that petty people love to exploit. Motivationally, it's a kind of social lubricant. By not shouting about your achievements, you minimize envy, and you avoid becoming a target. And normatively, it aligns you with social virtues, which makes it way easier to build genuine alliances with other people who value integrity. And that brings us to our final question for you. Take a hard look at your own work environment. Is its foundation built on the trust that authentic leaders create? Or is it a breeding ground for the opportunism of those looking to loot a burning house? The answer to that question determines not just the company's future, but the well-being of every single person in it.